Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to Jamie Photography. So in today's video, we're going to look at the new generative fill capabilities of Photoshop 25.1, which has just been released recently. There's not a huge change in terms of any tools or functionality, but the generative fill itself is actually even better than it was previously, and it's giving us some really good results. So I'm going to take you into a little bit of generative fill and how that now works better, show you the options that we get from that. I'm also going to use one of my favorite tools, the remove tool, as well in Photoshop. But most of the processing is going to be done for a day to night here in Lightroom. So this is the end result. This is Montmartre in Paris. It's a beautiful little street off the main square, and the image I started with is this one. This is where we started, so there's a little bit of clutter and rubbish around that we have to sort out. We've got this boring blue sky, and we're going to do a bit of work on that to get it to look like a natural nighttime shot. And as I talk about through this video, how do you get a natural looking effect by blending your light, painting with light, if you like, to make it look natural. So if you enjoy the video as we go through, would love you to give me a like, give me a click. Love your comments and questions and tips. Feel free to drop those down below. The raw image for this is also a link for it is down below, so feel free to download it and follow along. All I ask is you respect my copyright. If you do reshare the image, please give credit to Jamie R. Mathlin. That would be much appreciated. And if you haven't already subscribed, it would be wonderful for you to join my adventure here on YouTube. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to just open up the shadows a little bit, bring down the highlights again just a little bit, add a little bit of contrast just to give me a nice edge, because I am going to do a sky replacement. The sky is a little bit boring as it stands, so I'm just going to go about changing that sky. But before we do, I want to sort out the perspective here and make sure that we've got what we want in this shot. And we're going to turn it into a day to night. But once we've got the perspective right, we're going to go over into Photoshop and we're going to use the generative fill. And in Photoshop 25.1, which is the new version of the beta, it's improved still further, and I can show you how good that really is. So let's go down to transform, and at transform we can try clicking auto, see what it gives us. And it's not too bad, it's pretty straight there, got this straight line here, but in fact I'm going to go to guided. And I just want, we did just miss the edge of that doorway there, which is a shame, so I'm just going to use this edge of this door through here just to get a straight edge there, and I'll take the edge of this garage door here and we'll just pull that straight. So I'm happy that we've got that straight. And like I do with all my shots now, I apply denoise, even though this is shot at ISO 200 and the noise level is very low. It just takes it to another level by using the denoise function. So we'll click on the denoise. I'm going to run it at 50%, somewhere in the middle, and I'm going to create a stack, which just means that this image, the original image, will be put behind the new image. And as you can see, the before and after is a slight improvement. So I'm just going to run that now. So that's just going to run up here, as you can see. So I shot this 1/320th of a second at f11, ISO 200, and at 21mm. So we've run the denoise, we've got our verticals in. I'm not too worried about the horizontal here. We can find a balance when we do the crop, which we'll do next. So I'm going to go into the crop now. Now I'm really quite happy with the edge of the door here and the edge of the garage here. I don't think I really want to crop this down at all any much, maybe just a little bit off the top, but very little really. And maybe just bring the bottom up slightly. Let's see if there's a standard size that fits that, maybe 16:10. That's pretty close, I have to be honest. I've got the top of that little bit of wall there in, which is good. So I'm just going to raise it up just a little bit more. There we go. And hit return, and that gives me the crop. So we're at 16:10, which is a standard size. So if you do print your images, you will be able to fit them onto standard sizes. So I think before we do much else, I want to take this over into Photoshop. Let's do the sky replacement. Let's tidy up. There's a bit of mess on this corner here, and this is where the generative fill will come into its own. So we're going to right click on here. We're going to go to editing, editing Adobe Photoshop Beta. That's going to take us straight over to Photoshop. There we go. And now we're in here, we can start to use the power of generative fill. And I know I say it all the time, but it is absolutely incredible what we can do nowadays. So let's deal with the generative fill items first. So I'm just going to take the zoom tool, which you can see here, which you can get to by pressing Z. And it doesn't matter whether you're on positive or negative for the zoom up here in the top left corner, because if you're in the positive, when you click it will go forward. If you hold down the Option or Alt key on Windows, it will go backwards when you click. So you can choose to go in and out. So the first thing I'm going to do is deal with this box that's here that's been sort of taped over. So we'll take that out first. Now remember, we still only have a resolution of 1024 pixels available to us for the generative fill. So we don't want to do too big an area at a time, otherwise it will look slightly lower resolution. So I'm going to go to the lasso tool here, and because this is all straight edges, I'm going to take the polygon lasso tool, and I'm just going to click a start point here and literally just draw straight lines around this object, just to make sure that we've got everything covered here. So you can see I'm literally just drawing straight lines. I'm going to come back up to the top here and cut across, and there we go. There's our selection. Now what I always do in my videos now is also speed up the generative fill function, because it does take about 10-12 seconds. So as we go through, I will just go quiet and then we'll come straight back as soon as it's done, because I'll speed the video up. So generative fill and generate. There we go. So it's taken out one thing and left another. Let's see what the next option is. There we go. Nice bit of blank wall. That's pretty good. And the next option there. So I'm thinking probably number 2 is the one we want to keep. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go up here to these boxes now. Still got this this sort of polygonal tool, so we're still doing straight edges here. So what we'll do is we'll take not all of it in one go, but we're going to come around this piece here. Just go around the edges and take out this as well. This isn't very nice. It's such a shame. It's such a beautiful place, Montmartre. There's such a lovely little streets and little alleyways, and there's still, like any major city, there's still mess wherever you go, unfortunately. But we have generative fill at our fingertips, and what an amazing thing it is. So there we go. I've just gone around those boxes there. So generative fill and generate. So that's option 1, option 2, and option 3. So maybe we'll go for this one here, stick with that one for now. So I'm just going to hold down the space bar and I can move the mouse to move the screen. So here's some modernisms up here, so we're going to take those out as well. I'm going to leave this sticker. I think that adds a little bit of character there. I'm just going to go round this box again. Make sure you get the shadows, that's the important thing. So we're going to go back up to that edge there, and there we go. So generative fill and generate. There we go. Option 1, option 2, option 3. That's quite interesting that it decides to put another sticker in. I think option 1 is the one we're going to go for. So we'll take that one there. We'll move up a bit further. I think all of this is very nice here. I don't think we need to do any with that. Let's in character with the area. And you see these little wires here. This is to keep the pigeons off of the detail on the architecture. So we're just going to move around and have a look. So I might take that out, that white line out there. I'm going to jump over to the remove tool. So that's in the spot healing brush tool J, but you can go to remove tool. And what we're going to do is just go to the layers. There we go. And I'm just going to bring those together. I can right click and I can just say merge visible, bring them all together. And you need to do that because you can't use the remove tool on a generative layer. And if it does impede the work that you've already done, then you will need to bring them together. So some people say, well, then it's no non-destructive mode. Effectively, you've brought everything together, and if you do any more work now, you're stuck with it. But that's the whole point, really. We're trying to create a picture. I'm not trying to create a multi-layer image that I can go back to later and change minor things here and there. I'm just going to produce this image as a one take. So we've got the remove tool. I'm going to click there and just draw down on this white line just to get rid of that, a little bit of a distraction. And the remove tool will take a little bit longer for the first calculation that it does, and then it speeds up thereafter. So just take that little mark out there. There we go. It's very good. Whilst we're here, just going to clear up some of this mess that's in the street using the remove tool, which is extremely good at this type of correction. So you can do literally little clicks. It's so fast. We wouldn't want to wait for generative fill every time we try to remove anything here. So I'm literally just, there's the cigarette butts, which is a common theme in Paris. You see that a lot on the ground, but remove tool sorts it out. There's a few other bits of garbage just knocking about. I'll make the brush just a little bit smaller, and we can just make sure that we've got rid of anything that might be a little bit distracting, and we can just quickly, literally, just go over this. Now, got a very good friend, a very good photographer, portrait photographer, Kimberly. She's she always agrees with me that once we get going with the remove tool or the heal tool, it's a bit like therapy. Makes you feel a lot better, very relaxed as you go through tidying up somebody else's mess and making your image look, really good. So I think we've got the worst of it here. Let's just have a look at these doors. Love the rustic look of these doors. I probably want to remove this sign in the middle here. It stands out a bit much. I'm quite happy with the number 11. So I'm just going to make my brush a little bit bigger. Just overlap slightly there as we go around and fill in the bit in the middle. And the remove tool is very capable at removing these sort of things. Something a little bit on there, we'll just take that out. So just working our way around. I might even take out the manufacturer's label on the door there just to finish that off. This all looks very nice, and I did notice there was some graffiti on the lamp, or is it stickers on the lamp there? I'm just going to do that because we're going to do a day tonight. I do want the lanterns in quite good order because we will be lighting them, so I'm just going to take those out as well. Just tidy that up. That looks better. Anything else around here that we need to look at? Let's just zoom out slightly. Now I'm happy with all of this, and the rustic paint here, that all looks fine. I love the windows here on the door. Excellent. So yeah, I'm not going to go too mad picking out all the little details here, but I think that's definitely in better condition than it was a little while ago. So we'll just take out those little marks there. Little distraction on the edge. Get rid of that. Same with this one. So anything that really cuts into the border can be distracting. So it's a good idea if you can just to tidy up along your edges. So let's just zoom back. It looks like there was a light fitting or something there, so we can take that wire out as well. The hook, there we go. Isn't it clever? Isn't it absolutely so clever? So okay, so that's good. So let's bring that back to where we were here. We've had a bit of a tidy up. Quite happy with that. I don't think there's anything else we need to do with the generative fill or the remove tool. Just so good what can be done these days. So let's do the sky replacement. So we're back at this level. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to sky replacement, and it opens up the sky replacement module. And normally it drops the sky in that you last used, and you can use the little pull down arrow here, which will give you the standard skies that come with Photoshop, and you can use those. They're very good. They're quite low resolution, but they're quite usable. If you have your own skies, you can go to this little plus button down here and click on that, and it will take you into your own skies wherever your folder is. Obviously you can navigate to them, so I could put another sky in here. I could pick one of these skies, for example. Now the great thing about a Mac is if you highlight a file in the menu here in the folder, you can hit the space bar and it will literally open it up, and you can see what it is. Close the space bar, and when the space bar is open, you can use the cursor keys to move down through the skies that you have. So that works very well. That could be a good sky there. So number 3. So I've selected number 3. I'll click open, and what it will do is it will add it to the sky module here. There it is, and then you click on it and it will put it into the scene for you. So that looks quite good. Now I don't want to click OK at this point, but I do want to move away from these skies. So what I tend to do is just click up on this little grey area on the top right, and that just brings us back into the module, and then we can look at using the sliders to just dial this sky in a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of a halo along that edge, and we're overlapping in the background. So we can just bring the shift edge up a little bit there, and the fade edge we can move a long way to the right to get a nice tight edge on that sky there. If it's still not perfect, and what we can do is go to the magnifying glass here and just zoom in. You see it's still not perfect along there. What we can do is take the refine tool, and then we can take a slightly bigger brush there, click at the top and shift and click at the bottom. Did you see how I improved that edge there? And that gets rid of that halo that you can tend to get. So I'll zoom back out. So holding down the Option or Alt key to give it the minus. We'll go back, space bar to hold it to move it back to the right position. So I think brightness is working quite well. We could make it slightly darker. There we go. And should we add more color, we could add more orange, or we could take it back a little bit and add a bit more blue in if we wanted to, just to give us that sort of contrast in the sky. But I'm going to go roughly in the middle. It's quite a good sky. I shot that sky myself. Whenever you see a good sunset, take a photograph of it. You can use it later. Then we've got foreground lighting, and you can use that to make the edges of the foreground brighter or darker. As you see, makes them dark round there or makes them light round there. So I'm actually going to darken that down, because it also helps prevent a little bit of a halo as you can get right along the edges there. So I'm just going to darken that down just a little bit. There we go. And then you've got the edge lighting as well. So if you bring it to the left, it lights up the sky edge. So if I take it to the right, it darkens the sky edge, which is what we really want here. Color adjustment takes the color of the sky and applies it to the foreground. So the further to the right you go, the more the color of the sky is. So I'm going to go there. 79 is fine. And then the only thing I didn't mention here, you've got the flip tick box. If you tick that, it will flick the sky from left to right, and that works quite well. And you can also, by going to the move tool up here in this point here, you can actually just grab the sky and move it left or right if you feel that you want to move it up or down. You can do that like so. And I think that works quite well going that way around. It's quite bright. Let's unflip it. That's good as well. I think we could sort of find a point where that works. Now I do notice that the building in the distance there is actually being covered slightly by the sky. So what we can do is we can zoom in on that and just sort that out once we've got the sky in the right position. So let's just see how far over we can go. You can see the trees at the bottom there. So I think somewhere around there could work. Maybe we want a bit more brightness in it. If we keep going to the right, it gets brighter and brighter, but then you see the edge of the sky come back in. So I'm thinking probably just trying to find a spot where that building sits comfortably. Yeah, it's difficult to know really where to pop it. I think I'm going to go there. And did you see how the color changed when I let go? Because the showing sky was definitely a bluer color. I can add more. Remember, I can add more orange to that sky if I want to. So let's just have a look here. We're going to zoom in, click on the magnifying glass. We're just going to zoom in on the building, you can see that there's just a little bit of an overlap there. We can either try it with the refine tool, so we can take the refine tool here and we can Control Z to undo that. I need to make it a negative, which is Option. Hold down the Option or Alt key, and then I can just paint down through there, and we can just take away the sky from this area. You can see there's a little bit of bleed through on the sky there, so we're just going to take that out. There we go. And maybe that building there. So just going to make my brush a little bit smaller so I can just get in tight around the building there. That's it. There we go. And you can just take away a little bit more, maybe a little bit more off of here as well. Brush a little bit smaller still. Just going to tuck in that corner there. So we're just removing, by using the refine brush, you can literally just take it away. Just gonna, oops, there we go. I can just remove the sky from that building. Nicely done. Okay, so we're going to go back, zoom back out. There we go. We've got ourselves an image ready to take forward. Probably just mention the lighting mode here. You've got multiply showing it. With a pull down, you get two blending modes for the sky. You get screen, which is always brighter. It does work in sunnier scenes where you're putting bright blue skies in. But in this case, we're going with multiply, which works better with the darker skies. And then at the bottom, you've got this output to duplicate layer or new layers. If you select new layers, what will happen is when you click OK, it will give you a layer for every one of the elements of the sky and its interaction with the image. So you'll end up with about 7 or 8 layers on your right. We don't actually want that. We just want one layer which shows us the new image that we've got here. So I'm going to click duplicate layer. I'm going to click OK, and it's given us that layer there. So so the one below it is the original, and that's the one above it. So we don't actually need the original anymore. I'm just going to remove it. So I'm just going to right click on it. I'm going to say delete layer, and I'll say, yeah, I don't want that layer anymore. So I've just got the one layer. And the reason I do that is just to keep the image size smaller. So when we send it back to Lightroom, we're not dealing with gigabytes of data. We're only dealing with hundreds of megabytes of data, which is still a lot of work to be done. So I think we're done as far as we can go. We've got the sky done. We've got the background. I'm happy here. So I'm going to send this back into Lightroom. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Close because I don't want it to have it open in Photoshop any longer. And then I'm going to click Save. And then it's going to go back into Lightroom. There it is there. So that's the shot we're going to do the day to night on. Okay, I'm just going to remove that information up there. So we're going to take this and do a classic day to night. I'm going to light these 3 lanterns and maybe put a couple of these, light a few of these windows up. I do want to darken down the top of the image first. So we're going to go to masks. I'm going to select linear gradient. I'm just going to bring a linear gradient in from over here. And I'm just going to reduce the exposure slightly and bring down the highlights a little bit for that higher area there. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to create a new mask, select the sky. So it should pick the sky up in here. So selected the sky, and I'm just going to increase the contrast slightly, and I'm definitely going to add in some clarity just to make that sky pop. Do you see that? It works really, really well. Just make it pop a bit more about there, about 40. And we can also alter the color on that sky a bit more if we want a bit more blue, or if we want a bit more orange. If you do raise the temp up and get that more yellow, you do need to add tint. You do need to add magenta just to bring the orange balance. As you can see, they bring the orange balance back in again if you want a really red sky. So that's probably going a bit fast. I'm just going to back that off a little bit. There we go. So next thing we need to do is darken the whole scene so we can relight it slightly. So I'm just going to come out of masks here. I'm just going to bring the exposure down about I'd say about 1 stop. So there's 1 stop of darkness. Now the light's still coming through from where the sun was, and we can sort of suggest that that's maybe a little bit of sunlight left over, even maybe a little bit of moonlight. So we can sort of increase this in a moment. So we've darkened the image. It seems very, very dark now. So what we do need to do is now start thinking about how we're going to relight the scene. And of course, this lantern is the main item here in the shot. So we're going to go to masks. We're going to go create a new mask, a new radial, and we're going to take a radial that's just slightly bigger than the lantern and place it on the center like this. We're going to zoom in. So I'm just going to move over to that point. There we go. And we're going to brighten that up. So I'm going to bring the exposure all the way up to the top. 4 stops of exposure all the way up, bright as we can. And then I'm going to take a subtract from this radial brush, and I'm going to take 0 feather on this brush and 100% flow, because all we want to do is remove that part of the radial gradient. And then I'm just going to brush a little bit smaller. I'm going to go to the edge of the glass here. I'm going to click once. I'm going to hold down the shift key to draw a straight line and click again. It draws a nice straight line for us. Click once, straight line, click again using the shift key. So click, shift, click. Literally simple as that. I'm just going to come around the outside of this shade, because the underside of the shade does get illuminated a little bit by the lantern when it's lighting up. There we go. So just gone around there. I'm going to make my brush bigger, quite a bit bigger, and I'm using the square brackets just to the left of the return key, and I'm just going to paint round, making sure you don't go over the fitting like I just did there. You saw that. So if I go over a bit like that, I think, oh no. So Command or Control Z to undo it, and then go back and do it again. If I zoom back slightly to 100% here, and I hover over the mask, you'll see what's still illuminated, but you'll also see the bits I've missed. So I'm just going to go around the outside of that now with the big brush. So hover over again. So we definitely need to bring in this sort of lantern edging. We need to darken that down as well. So just zoom back in. I'm still on brush, but this time I'm going to take a small brush, come right the way down, little brush here, and I'm going to click, shift, click, just to get a nice tight edge along there. I'm going to do slightly bigger brush here, so click, shift, click along there, back to the small brush, just going to come back up this edge here. And that just gives you a bit of definition as you light the lantern as we go forward. So that's looking pretty good. I'm just going back to 100%. I'm going to click on this radial that we just created. Let's have a look at it again. It's just those areas there. And then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to duplicate the mask, not the radial filter, duplicate the mask, because I want it to have the same masking levels that we had previously. And then I'm just going to bring this one down. So this top one is just that little bit smaller. I'll move it so it's roughly in the right place. There we go. And that's effectively simulates the bulb, the lamp inside the lantern. And at the moment I've got it still at maximum, but I can just bring that down a little bit if I want to. So if we zoom back in this scene, come out of there, you'll see you get this quite good effect of the lantern itself lighting up there. One thing I do notice is that we do have a bit too much of the background color in there. So I can either correct that with a simple new mask, or I could try to correct the colors in there if I went back to the mask that is the lantern itself, and I could choose to bring down the tint, and also bring down the temp, just to get the color more realistic. But what I'm not going to do that for the moment, so I'm just going to undo those two. What I am going to do is create a new mask, and this time it's an object. I'm going to take a smallish brush for the object, and I'm just going to go around that area there, and it will select that as an object. And what I can do is I can just do a correction specifically on that area only. There we go. So I now get that as a single color. So we're going to go with quite a white light here. Quite happy with that. So we'll zoom back. So of course, what does a lantern do? Well, it lights up the area around it. So let's just come out there just a second. I think that will need to be brighter. So what we can do is go back to the lantern mask, not the lamp mask, the lantern mask. We can select on that lantern mask there, And what we can say is let's there's the one. We can duplicate that mask again. Right, now we've got 3 masks there. We've got the base mask, we've got the new one we've just added on top, and we've got the light bulb one. So this is the Mark III copy here we're on. So I can now adjust from 0, and if that's at 0, this middle mask is giving us exactly where we were before when I wanted this brighter. So the middle mask now I can increase that up to get to the brightness that I feel is where I want to be. So I'm actually just going to come up 1 stop approximately, and then we can have a look to see how that looks. So let's just have a look at that. Go to fit, come out of the masks. That's better. Happy with that. So we need to put some light on the wall here. This lantern would light this area here. We also need to put some light down here, and of course we need to put some light on the ground. So let's do the ground first. So go back into mask, create a mask, radial gradient, and I'm going to pull out a big radial gradient, and I'm going to place the center of this radial gradient directly under this lamp. Okay, now if you look, this lamp is just around that corner, so the center is going to be just there. So we're going to take this, we're going to place it there. Okay, and we're just going to turn it slightly. Try not to have these things completely straight. They don't look natural if they're completely straight. So just put a little bit of a turn on it. And I do want it to light out this way a little way, but I don't want to go too far down there. So what we'll do in a minute is we'll remove part of that, and we certainly will have to remove this piece here. So let's bring up the exposure. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit of color to it just to bring it together. And really important when you're doing lighting effects, it's always good to add some clarity. So go down to clarity. Now watch these stones here. When I add the clarity, you see, wow, just pops, doesn't it? So it's probably just a little bit too much. I'm going to come back to about 25. That's really, really good. Now this has come out quite well here. I quite like that, but it is a bit too orange. So what we could do is we could try to change the color, but I think in this case I'm just going to remove it. We can add some more light in there later, and I'm even going to bring this forward slightly. Ever so slightly. There we go. So we've got the light going back there, which I'm quite actually happy with. I don't think I need to adjust that. In fact, we could probably make it just a little bit bigger and bring it this way. That works quite well. And if we want to darken that down back there, we can subtract a brush. I'm going to go with the brush being 100% feather, okay, and probably about 30 to 40% flow, because I just want to sweep away a little bit of that in the distance. Just going back, and just see that, just bringing that back, and then I can increase the flow up to about 60 and just take away this very bright area that we've sort of created. Now this lantern would cast a little bit of a shadow on this edge here, so what we're going to do is just probably increase the flow a little bit more, leave the feather, maybe no, actually we'll bring the feather down to 70%, we'll make the brush smaller, and we'll come from this corner and we'll go back this way. So I clicked once, and now hold down the shift and click again, and can you see how it's just put that little edge in there? Can you see that? So it's got a little feathered off edge. You get a little shadow on that corner. That works quite well. We will need to put a little bit light opposite. It looks like there's a little bit coming over here. That seems to work quite well, but we'll create another radial and we'll pop it over this side, and the light's going to come down at an angle to about there, and then we're just going to bring up that exposure a little bit over that side. Add in a little bit of clarity, just makes it pop. Over there works quite well. In fact, I'm going to make that slightly bigger, just off axis the thing slightly. There we go. That works very well. And then I probably just want to put a little bit of light here, as though it's lighting this area. So we'll take another radial gradient. We'll pull the radial gradient out and sort of place it like such. And I'm just going to bring that down slightly so that the light is look like sort of coming down onto these images here, and we'll just brighten that up as well. So we'll go to exposure and we'll bring that up just a little bit. They might say, yeah, but look what it's doing to the sky. Yeah, but I'll show you what we'll do with that. So remember, I'm just going to pop a little bit of contrast on there, and I'm going to add a little bit of temp just to bring the yellow, not too much, just check it with a little bit of magenta. and I'm going to go down, add a bit of clarity. There we go. Now, this radial gradient needs to have this piece removed. So of course, what we do is go subtract. We go to brush. This time with the brush, we have the feather quite low, about 10%. Let's go there, and the flow at 100 because we want to remove everything that's there. So I'm going to click at the bottom here with the edge of the brush against the edge of the wall here. I'm just going to click there, and then I'm going to go all the way up here against the edge of the wall there, shift click, and you can see I've drawn that line, right? Now, what we probably will do is need a little bit of light in there coming into that wall. So I'm just going to undo that, Command or Control Z twice to bring it back. So maybe we want this bit lit here. So let's just get in a little bit closer so you can see what we're doing. So you've got this bit here would be lit, right? So we need to just take it away from the sky. So I'm going to subtract the brush, and we've got this lowish feather, high flow. I'm going to come down here. I'm just going to take the edge. I'm going to click once. I'm going to come all the way up here, and I'm going to click again. And we get that edge line there. You see it's overlapped slightly too much. So I'm just going to go back 1, 2. That's the Control or Command Z. I'm going to take that brush again, and I'm just going to come in right on that edge of that line there. There we go. And I'm just going to come back in now. There's a little bit showing there, so I can come back in just in the middle here and just cut back over slightly just to remove that line there. Let's just try again. There we go. That works quite well. Now we just do the bit further out. So we make the brush bigger. We click and we shift click to just bring that out. So I'm just going to zoom back. I'm going to take the bigger brush here now, look, and we can just paint that away. So the lantern is lighting up the wall. It's not lighting up the sky. I think that's really, really important that we get that sort of effect there. And that works quite well. This bit's a bit bright, so I probably want to bring this down a little bit. So I'm just going to go to create a new mask, a new brush, and that brush is going to have a lot of feather, quite a low flow, and it's going to have a negative exposure. That's what I've added here, negative 1.15, and I'm just going to paint over this gently, blending this down. There we go. Just want to take that away from that area there, and that works very well. I'm quite happy with that. Now I probably want to simulate a bit of light coming in from the right, so I'm just going to create a new radial gradient here. I'm going to bring that in as though there's a lantern just out of shot, right? So it's coming over there. You think, what's he doing here in the corner? But let me show you. We just bring up that exposure here, and we can just sort of simulate as though there is a light just off that scene there. We can even make it higher if you want to, just to light up the step. It's a bit bright for the corner, so I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. There we go. And this area here is quite an area of detail, so I want to just make that a bit brighter. So what I'm going to do is going to create another radial gradient, and I'm just going to pop one in this area here, but this is going to be quite subtle. Just going to bring up just a little bit. So we're creating this sort of idea that there's light coming from somewhere. I'm going to bring up the shadows slightly just to open that door up a little bit. Did you see there how the door opened up? And I'm definitely going to add in a little bit of contrast and a little bit of clarity in there just to make that all pop a little bit there, which works very well indeed. I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate this mask, and I'm going to highlight this one here, and I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to do something similar in this corner here and just bring this out and up, and we can just brighten this up a little bit more as though we're getting sort of light coming in from that side, just a little bit more on the clarity. I just want to make those stones pop just a little bit more. And also up here, we need a little bit more light just to make that come alive. So duplicate the mask again, just highlight that, bring it up on here. We'll change the angle again. Okay, now it's rather large, so I'm just going to bring it back a little bit, and we're going to darken that down. We just need this to be quite subtle up there, as though there's sort of this light's coming through. And that looks pretty good. Quite happy with that. So there's another lamp down here, and there's another one down there, so we need to light those up as well. So we're going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to zoom into 200%. I'm going to move down. You see that sky's got a little bit of noise in it. we can, just before we go any further, we can deal with that. We're going to create a new mask. We're going to select the sky. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go down to noise, and we're just going to bring the noise up just a little bit. There we go. You can see that's the before and that's the after. Just smoothens that out just a little bit there. So and then I'm just going to light this lamp here. So create a radial gradient. Take a radial gradient that's a little bit bigger than the lantern itself. Place it in the center. Give it a full stack of exposure there. Subtract a brush. So the brush needs to have 0 feather, maximum flow. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so it's not a bit too wieldy. Just click, shift, click. And we will literally just go around that lantern as such. Click, shift, click. And just across the bottom there. Make our brush bigger using the square brackets. Just going to come round. There we go. We've made that lantern bright, and I'm just going to, I think it's the right color. I'm going to click on it again, right click, and duplicate the mask. Then we'll have a second one on top. This time, remember, this is the lamp. So we're just going to make that smaller. Okay, that's a bit bright. Lamp there, so we're just going to dim that back a little bit. So remember to jump back out of the masks and go back to fit and just see how that sits down there, because remember, as you get further away, even though it's the same brightness, it can look a lot brighter, and that does look too bright. So I'm just going to go back into the mask, go to the main mask, and just bring that down just a little bit. There we go. That actually looks a lot better. I'm going to go down here. We need to put some light down here. So we're going to create another mask, another radial gradient here. We're going to pull that radial gradient out into this area here. So it's directly under the lamp. It's going to light this area. Okay. So then we're going to bring up the exposure as we did before, not too much. And we're going to add in a little bit of clarity just to make these stones pop here. And I'm just going to add a little bit of temp just to get that sort of slightly yellow look here, but we don't want to light up this building in the background. Okay, so what we can do is we can either do it with a brush or we can do it with an object, but I'm going to subtract from this scene here a brush. I'm going to take a smallish brush here, so we can just literally just come in on the edge of there, and then we can click shift just to go along this line. I'm just going to do the same along the top of the steps here. So just come in there. These trees will probably be lit up by the street lamp because they're quite close to it. Make the brush a little bit bigger. There we go, and just take that bit of the radial gradient away. So I'm just going to come down on there. We're going to cut over here. We will need to take a smaller brush just to get into that edge there. So I'm just removing that radial there. We're just going to come down with a small brush. We're still in the subtract, so we're just going to come into that corner there and come out from there. And there's a little bit there we just need to take out. There we go. So we've got that area illuminated. So let's jump back and have a look at that. Let's go back to 100. That looks quite nice. We want to put a little bit of light on this wall here, and we want to light those bushes up just a little bit more. So let's create another radial gradient here, and we'll take a relatively large radial gradient, place it on the wall like so. A little bit of brightness here, a little bit, a bit of contrast, not too much, not too much. It looks like it would actually come around this corner a little bit as well, because that's further away, so the lantern would light there. And definitely put some clarity in this shot. There we go. It's a little bit bright. Back it off a bit more. That works very well. Now, whilst I'm here, I can go to Add and select a brush, and it will now use the settings that we had for that to allow this brush to work. And I can select a slightly bigger brush. I can put 100% feather and a little bit of flow in there, and I can just pick up these bushes here, which would be illuminated more. So I'm just clicking, and let's just increase the flow rate just a little bit. And then what we can do is just pick up the brightness on there. Now, we did overlap this wall, right, with the radial, and so technically we should take it out. But quite often, if you do this, you can see it looks like that light is reflecting off this wall, so it gives you a very natural effect. I'm just going to go back to this radial here, select add a brush to this one as well. So this is the radial. You can see the mask there that we had, and you can see there. And I'm just going to take that one and I'm going to add a brush and use the same settings we've got there and just pick up just a little bit more around there. You see that, how that works there? Just brighten that up just a little bit more. We've got this lamp to do, so we're going to go create a radial gradient, same thing, slightly bigger than the lantern itself. Just going to zoom back in. There we go. It's a little bit too big, that one, so I'm just going to make that a bit smaller. Going to bring the exposure up. Now remember, the other one was a bit too bright by the time we're done, so I'm just going to back him off to there. I'm going to subtract a brush with 0 feather, maximum flow, and then make the brush a little bit smaller so I can get in there. Click once, shift click, click, shift click, shift click, and just work your way around. Click, shift click, just to work your way around that lantern there. I'm going to take a bigger brush just to sweep round. There we go. Then remember, we're going to click, right click, duplicate the mask, and then we're going to put the lamp inside the fitting as such. Just bring that down. It's a little bit bright, just back him off slightly. Let's have a look and see what that looks like. Come out of the masks. You see that's just a little bit too bright. So we can take the, I think in this case I'm going to make the lantern itself a little bit, the lamp itself a little bit darker. There we go. I think that works quite well. I want to light up this area here on the trees from this. So I'm going to add a brush to there. I'm going to make sure we've got feather at 100% flow, relatively low, and I'm just going to build up by painting in this area the light that would be quite bright on those bushes edges, because it's quite close, isn't it? So just add a little bit more, a bit further out. I'm going to put more around here as well. Just bring that up a little bit so that lamp is lighting this green bush here. Maybe a little bit more light on the other side, as though it's coming across from here like so. And then of course, just going to go back out to 100%. See how that looks? Doesn't that look so natural? Coming in like that, maybe a little bit more around there as well. There we go. And remember, because it's close to the lantern, it will be brighter. And then underneath we need to put this light here. Now we could grab another radial, but we can still use this brush if we want to. So we can gradually just build up a little bit of light underneath this lantern here. And we're going to add just a little whisker of colour using the temp slider, and we're definitely going to add in a little bit of contrast, and we're going to add some clarity to that scene, make that pop a little bit more. There we go. And I'm just going to zoom back and just see where we're at. So that works very, very well. I just need to extend that lighting area just slightly. So just take that brush through there a little bit more, just to see if we can just add a little bit more light coming across there from that light fitting. So I think that looks quite good in the way of the lanterns. It's a bit dark here, so what I'm going to do is I'm still on this brush. I'm just now going to add in the auto mask and just try and pick up some of the brighter areas on this bush here, just as though the detail on the surface is just being picked up a little bit by the light itself. So just come in there, and I think what I want to do is just take another brush to go over the top of that. Still got the auto mask on, and I'm just going to paint that area in so we know what we're doing with the auto mask. Can you see how the auto mask just picks up the areas you want? And then what we're going to do is we're going to brighten it up with shadows. So there we go. So we don't need verified outlook. There we go. I'm going to brighten up the shadows in that area. We're going to brighten up the whole thing slightly. So I can bring that up. And I definitely want some contrast in there. There we go. And I'm gonna make it a little bit more green, and I'm gonna put some clarity on it just to make it pop. So you've got some detail going on in that area there. We can do the same with some of these leaves around here as well. We can just add in a little bit more into this area, so it just gives that little bit more interest in your scene. So probably need to do something with one or more of these windows just to make it look like a day to night scene around here. So I think this top window up here would be the one I would want to go to. I'm just going to add a little bit more brightness on that side there. So I'm still using that same brush. There we go. I'm just picking that up a bit more across there. So that's a little bit too much. I'm just going to back that off slightly there. So I'm using the Control Z or Command Z, Command Z, just to bring that back a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to pop up to that window up there. So let's go up to 100%. Let's go up to that window right at the top there. And how we light windows up, I'm sure you've seen it before, but I take a radial gradient. I take quite a large radial gradient here. I'm going to put it the same direction as the window, but the center of the radial is where the brightness of the light would be. Now, if you look at that room, the light's going to be in that room. It's going to be back here somewhere, right? So we're going to take the center of that, say probably about there. We're going to take the exposure all the way to the top, maximum. So it's going to light up this window here, as you can see. And now we need to remove the radial gradient from around that window. So I'm going to go in a bit closer still. And what we're going to do is we're going to subtract a brush. We're going to go with quite a high flow here, about 90%, and 0 feather. We're going to take the brush and we are literally going to draw along the edges of this window. So I'm going to click, shift click, and just work my way around these window panes. As you can see here, I think I've got auto mask on. Just turn that off. Just going to go back, do that again without the auto mask on. So we're just going to come in there. There we go. Just go around this window and click, shift click. We've got to go underneath this along this gutter, as you can see. So I'm just holding down the shift and clicking along that gutter line, so we get a good line there. And we're going to come up the edge of this wall here, so click. And then you can't do it all in one go. You've literally got, because that wall is definitely not very straight, you've got to sort of work your way up just to get back to where you were along the edge there. As you can see, I can make the brush slightly smaller, and then I'm going to cut in here and across here. So I'm basically removing, that was a bit low, so Command Z, Control Z to undo, a little bit higher. There we go, that's a bit better. One at the top, one at the bottom. These cross panes are a little bit smaller. Let me just do these ones over this side whilst we're here. That's it. Let's get those in. And I'll use a smaller brush to do the cross panes as we go. So just coming down there. So this can take a little bit of time. You do need to concentrate. You need to make sure you don't overlap the edge, so you get a dark line running along there. Let me just pop that one in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down this edge here, and I'm going to make it that 90% removal like we talked about earlier, just on there. And then I'm going to come out to here. Oops, just want to do that dot there. I'm going to come out to here, and I'm going to do the same down here. And this area here, I'm going to make not quite as dark, because the light coming out the window would light that area. So I'm going to just go up there. There we go. And I'm just going to come in on there, and we create that sort of edge there, if you like. There we go. Just around the top, make that a little bit bigger, so we can get around the top. So you've got that sort of darker area there, and then we'll come down the side here and take out that window there. So I'll make my brush bigger in a second. I'm just going to just paint this area in around there. So we've got those areas there. We need to do the center of the window. So let me just go big brush for a second and just move my way around this large radial that we've got here. That's it. There we go. And along the top. Right, now we'll go to the small parts of the window panes here. So just going to make the brush smaller again using those square brackets. And I'm just going to come through on each one. So click, shift, click, just to get it in the right place. So these need to come back. So I'm going to back off the flow to about sort of 50–60%. Take a slightly bigger brush that crosses that area. Click once at the top, click once at the bottom, and you get a slightly different level of darkening. It's actually slightly, and it gives it a more reasonable effect. In fact, I'll do that again, but with less than. Let's go down to about 40% and do the same thing again. Click, shift, click, and click, shift, click, and you get this sort of effect. But what makes it really work is that still on that low flow. I'm just going to take a slightly smaller brush that's equal to this pane. We know the light bulb's over here on the ceiling somewhere, so we have to draw a line between the center of the radial and the pane. So it's going to come this way. I'm going to click once there. I'm going to come out here and make this brush a little bit bigger, right? And shift and click again, and you'll get the shadow onto this area here. Do you see that? That's actually slightly too dark, so I'm just going to back off the flow just a little bit more, and I'm going to do that again. There we go. And the same down here, lights there. So this one, we're going to go, this is a bigger one anyway, and then we're going to come down this way. So that works quite well. Just one, there's a line along there that's just distracting ever so slightly, so I'm just going to increase the flow again slightly, make the brush smaller here, and just come in on that edge there. So that just sort of darkens that line out, makes it work better. And I'm just going to come along there as well. Right, now what we do is we zoom out, and we have to run around the edges of this completely now, just to make sure that we're clear. So if I hover over it, you can see that we've got a little bit of work to get rid of that. So that's still on the brush, but now of course we can take flow to 100, feather can stay at 0, a bigger brush there. I'm just going to come up, I'm going to wash that away. So I'm just going to make that perhaps a little bit brighter. Now we're already at maximum exposure, as you can see. So what we can do is we can bring up the highlights. That also helps make it brighter. Not too much. I think about there probably works okay. But we can, if we want, make the light bulb in the room a little bit brighter. So what we can do is we can click on that, on the actual radial, right click, duplicate the mask, and then we can take a little one, just a little one like this, and we can place that where we think the light might be in that room. It's just a little bit too bright, so just bring that back. There we go. Now, if I zoom back, let's come out of the mask. Let's zoom back to fit. And you can see that you got the light bulb in there. Now, it's a little bit bright, the light bulb, and the room needs to be a bit brighter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into the mask there, select that last mask that we've got, which was the extra one, as you know. Just bring that lamp back a little bit. There we go. But make the actual previous mask, which is the whole window, slightly brighter. Bring the highlights up just that little bit more. Maybe even bring the shadows up a little bit. And you've got the light on up there. So I think we're pretty well there. I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to come out of masks for a second. I think we just need to do the final touch on the overall image. So we can use the highlight shadows, blacks and whites here, just to find where we want to be. So I'm just going to open up the shadows a little bit more. Here we go. Take a little bit off the highlights, not a lot. and brighten the whole scene ever so slightly. And then I'm going to go into the whites, hold down the Option or Alt key on Windows, and as holding it, I can move left or right to see where my whites are. If you go all the way to the right, you bring the whites up. If you go all the way to the bottom, you don't. So the lanterns themselves are just lighting up there. So I just want to bring it slightly under. That works. Same with the blacks. Hold down the Option or Alt key. We can just add in a bit more black just to make it pop in there. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more exposure to the scene just to make it find that balance. Now, I've been talking to a number of people who've been showing me their work, their attempts at data night, and some of them have been very good actually. And one of the things that I've picked up on is, in most cases, people have too much contrast, and they think that's because of the contrast slider is too high. So if I put that up there, it's too much contrast, right? But actually, the problem generally is that it tends to be underexposed, and then they either bring up their highlights, okay, to do that, or they bring up their whites to do that. And actually, quite often it's better to just bring your exposure up just a little bit more, and you can always just add or subtract just a little bit of contrast rather than adding too much. This is a little bit bright here, so I can go back and find the actual mask for that, but it's much quicker just to go back in and create another mask, a radial, and just place it over that area that's just a little bit too bright, and just take a little bit of exposure out, just like that. That's the quickest way to do it. Works quite well. So just to finish this scene off, I think I want the sky a little bit darker at the top. So I'm going to go create a sky selection, and I'm going to intersect it. So these three little dots here, I'm going to intersect it, right? Intersect mask with a linear gradient. And I'm just going to pull the linear gradient down from the top like so. And what we can do is then we can just darken the very top of the scene like that. It's a bit too much. I'm just going to add a bit of blue into it as well, just to make it stand out a little bit more up there. Not too much. And that works quite well. And it doesn't affect our illuminated window that we had. So, and then I think just to finish off, I'm going to go down to the bottom to effects. I'm going to pop in a bit of post-crop vignette, just a little bit, probably about 15. I'm going to feather that right out. I'm going to go back and just brighten this scene one more time, just a little bit brighter. Yep, and I think we've got it. So there's your generative fill using the new Photoshop 25.1, which is extremely good, as you could see. We've done a classic day tonight, and we really brought the image alive. I'm really quite happy with that. And you know, you've got to do your day to night so they look natural. That's the real key to doing a day to night image, is make it look natural. You've got to make it to the point where people think that, though they don't even think, if you get me, they don't even think it was a daytime picture. It was a nighttime picture when you shot it, and that's the real key to it, if you can do that. And it's all about blending all your light together. It's about bringing those radial gradients with lots of feather together in a way that you're not getting really bright spots. You're not getting pools of light that are too sharp on the edges. That's really important that you try to blend. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like. That's very helpful. And love your comments and questions. Feel free to chat away with me, and even give me some tips. I've had some really good tips over the last few months that people have given me. And if you haven't already subscribed, it would be really great for you to join my adventure here on YouTube. So I'm going to say for now, bye-bye.